It is absurd to sacrifice your family for the sake of freedom. Or at least that's what Darrow, the protagonist of Red Rising, would have you believe. Whether it be movies, TV shows, or books, everyone has seen at least one story with the message that family comes first, and nothing is more important than family. At the same time, everyone has also seen an inspiring tale about how freedom is this ultimate objective good that's worth sacrificing everything for. Live free or die is the admirable motto of many fictional and non fictional heroes. But which is it? Do you live for your family or do you die for freedom? When is the oppression so severe that it's worth sacrificing a life with your family to go fight and die for freedom? That is one of the central questions at the heart of Red Rising. And it's a question that's asked throughout the book multiple times in multiple ways, and only the reader can answer it. Red Rising is a science fiction novel that reads more like fantasy. It is the debut novel of author Pierce Brown, and it was originally published in 2013, according to the edition notice in my book. I've noticed some places on the internet will say it was originally published in 2014. Red Rising is the first book in the Red Rising trilogy, which, since being finished, expanded into the Red Rising saga, as Pierce Brown wrote a sequel trilogy, and I believe is still writing the series. Red Rising tells the story of Darrow, our protagonist and narrator, who is a paradigmatic chosen one figure. He is destined to free his people and save the universe from the tyranny of an evil empire. And this book is his first steps in that journey towards this messianic destiny. This is an incredibly difficult book to summarize without giving away spoilers, because pretty early on in the novel, there's a big twist that totally changes the feel of the entire book and the focus of the entire book. But I will tell you this because it's on the book jacket. It is similar to the Hunger Games in some ways. And if the book jacket's willing to give that much away, I think it's fair that I give that much away. The central theme of this book is freedom versus family, in the sense that how bad does oppression have to be that it becomes worth sacrificing everything to gain freedom from that oppression, and to gain freedom from that oppression, not for you, but just for others, for future generations. And the book doesn't try to answer either of those questions. Instead, the protagonist is basically left without a choice, and the decision is taken out of his hands. He is going to fight for freedom. This isn't the thrust of this book, and I'm going to get laughed out of the room for even mentioning this, but you could argue for an anti-colonialist reading of this book, because the flaw at the heart of the evil empire is a belief in like a biologic superiority to the lower classes, and that is clearly going to be the demise of this empire, and it is also the source of their worst atrocities. But please do not let my brief discussion of themes give you the wrong impression of this book. It is not like some heady think piece. It is a popcorn flick. It is a roller coaster ride. It's an action adventure. And honestly, if some of the like darker moments in the book and some of the more violent moments were edited out, then this would get shelved with YA fiction, which isn't a criticism. It's just I don't want to be misleading about what the book is. What the book is fun. While this book is fun, it is also deeply flawed. First of all, it's on a lot of different levels just a little sloppy. I read online that Pierce Brown wrote this book in 2 months, and I absolutely believe that. It feels like a book that was written in a pretty short amount of time, because the world is not that well like fleshed out. It just is an amalgamation of all sorts of references to Western antiquity, merged together in a way that does not amount to a coherent new civilization. Also, like a lot of the like ways in which individuals are divided does not scream creativity. Like, for instance, the class system is just colors. green, brown, gold, red, and the houses within the institute, which I won't explain because it would risk giving away spoilers. But the houses are just names of Roman gods: Pluto, Jupiter, Neptune. The clans in the mining colony are just Greek letters like lambda, gamma. So really pre-made, readily at hand, common ways to just distinguish groups instead of doing more of the like Tolkien-esque thing where you actually invent terms and names and distinctions. This is nope. These are the gold guys. These are the red guys. These are the green guys. And that's fine. It's totally okay. Not a criticism. I'm just saying this does not have the level of like sweat and tears poured into the world building that some of the more in-depth fantasy boasts. Pierce Brown is definitely not setting out to break new ground here. Instead, it's kind of like he's doing a best of compilation of plot points from stories he's enjoyed, and then he's putting his own spin on it, running his characters through scenarios you have seen before, and then having them handle it in somewhat different and unique ways. And I mean, I think it's plenty interesting and plenty fun. And some people would argue that all art is just a mashup of existing art, and that every story is a combination of previously existing stories. Famously, many of Shakespeare's plays were just him retelling very old stories, like Romeo and Juliet, a very, very old story that Shakespeare made even more famous. The fact that this book borrows from other books is not inherently a bad thing because everyone does it. I will say this book does it to such an extent that maybe it gets a little eye-rolly, and I think that many a reader might not have a lot of patience for the extent to which huge swaths of the plot feel familiar, almost tired. More than any of them, probably the fact that at the heart of the story is the classic chosen one Messiah trope, and it's not even like a twist on the trope. It's he's a chosen one and he's a reluctant savior. So just imagine those two tropes and you know this character. Beyond the protagonist, a lot of the other characters feel like stock characters that you've definitely seen before in other stories. But all of this, the familiarity of some of the plot points and story structures, the familiarity of the characters, does not necessarily add up to a negative. In fact, and in this case, I would argue that mostly it adds up, for me at least, to a positive, because there are so many stories that this kind of touches on and changes in ways that I find very satisfying, because the original versions of a lot of these stories have, characters zig when I want them to zag. And in this book, they zag. So I enjoy that. It's familiar situations being handled slightly differently. My harshest criticism is the prose. The prose is bad, not just not beautiful, but actually poor. The prose is often sloppy, and otherwise it is purely functional. There's nothing beautiful about Pierce Brown's writing style. It is just him conveying a story, and generally speaking, that is fine. It doesn't earn you any special points for your prose, but it isn't a negative until the functionality fails due to errors in grammar or style. And this book has many examples of both errors in grammar and style. However, even that criticism, I will put this spin on, which is a lot of the grammatical mistakes I see in the book are things that an editor should have fixed. And I think it is a testament to the publisher not having enough faith in Pierce Brown and Red Rising to invest in doing a good job editing. Joke's on them. Pierce Brown proved them wrong. This book has been wildly successful. A miscellaneous criticism that maybe bugged me and only me is that the different classes, the different colors in the story are actually different species of humans. Humans have been altered to be these different things to serve these different purposes. For instance, one of the security force classes, the Obsidians, are taller and like have 8 fingers. Like they are truly a different species of humans. And in the same way, the ruling class, the golds, are stronger. Their bones are literally made of tougher stuff, and they are smarter than the other species. The book repeatedly hits on this point that the golds are smarter. And unfortunately, once the book becomes a cast of just golds, the author's writing isn't actually any different. Like these characters are not smarter than his non-gold characters. So I think he should have just left that out. There was no reason to include that detail if he wasn't going to actually write the golds as being smarter, or in the reverse, write the other colors as being dumber. It's just really weird that he repeatedly emphasizes the golds are smarter than the other colors, and then he writes them as exactly the same level of intelligence as the other colors. Of course, you could try to counter that criticism with the unreliable narrator argument, but I don't think that holds up in this context. I do not think this is an instance of an unreliable narrator when the narrator is in the same breath telling us their bones are made of stronger stuff, and they truly are, and he's telling us that they're smarter. I don't think the one is meant to be a fact and the other is meant to be the narrator's opinion, which can't be relied on. No, the golds were meant to be smarter. He just failed to write them as actually being smarter. Overall, this was a super fun book. I think it starts pretty slow, and because of the various twists, you don't really get a feel for what the book is going to be until you're about 100 pages in. My reviews are, of course, always subjective, but I feel like this one is even more subjective than most, because in this case, I am saying I like this book because of my personal tastes and interests, and I can think of a million of my friends who I would definitely not recommend this book to. I don't think it's a book like The Great Gatsby that everyone should read because I believe it is a truly good book. No, this is just a book that I like, I enjoyed, and, I'm excited to see what happens next in the series. Although I'm a little nervous because the heart of this particular story that I really enjoyed so much can't be repeated, or at least I don't expect it to be able to be repeated in the future installments. So the sequels must be very different types of stories. So I don't know if I'll like it as much. We'll see. So who is this book for? If you're a fan of like pulp sci-fi or action adventure novels, then I think this book is for you. If you liked The Hunger Games, then I think this book is for you. And if you're a big fan of audiobooks, I think that Pierce Brown's writing style would lend itself very nicely to the audiobook format. And I think this could be a really fun book to listen to. So my rating is 7 out of 10 bicorns, which, given all the criticisms, it feels a little crazy that I rate this so much higher than The Three Body Problem, which in many ways is a superior book, at least on a ideas level. It is a far superior book. When you're saying whether something is good or bad, you're saying whether it's good or bad for what it is. John Wick and It's a Wonderful Life are both good movies, but they're good in very different ways. This is a pulpy action-adventure sci-fi novel, and for a pulpy action-adventure sci-fi novel, it's good. I thought it was fun, slow start, but big, nonstop action after you get through that. And of course, we want to talk about this cover, and I like this cover. I think it's good. It's simple yet memorable, and that's cool. I like that the title is in vertical text instead of the traditional horizontal text. I like that the font is so much larger for the title than the author's name. That's good and the way it should be. I don't care for the busyness of the #1 New York Times bestselling novel, especially because some version of New York Times bestseller seems to be on the cover of everything now, rendering it essentially meaningless. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you think you would be interested in a channel that reviews fiction from all genres, from classics to pulp, from sci-fi to literary fiction, if that sounds intriguing to you, consider subscribing. And if you like this video, please throw it a like, because while the AI decides what we get to see, it lets us vote.